Well, the next thing I'd like to work on is this 45-degree overhead valve twin cylinder engine. And it's going to be kind of complicated in that we've got all of these little tiny thin extrusions on this, and I'm assuming that's to vent the heat. But before we begin on these, what I'd like to do is get this centerpiece that kind of establishes where they're going to be and how they connect up. So I'd like to begin with just this piece here. You can see that here. And that's over here on the other side. If I hit the 3 key and press Shift-Z, we can zoom in and we can see that here. So we don't have a whole lot of detail here in this view, but I think we've got some good images over here. But before we begin doing that, let's do a little bit of cleanup again here in the outliner. And I'll just come over here and right-click and duplicate area into a new window so we have our outliner here so we can kind of see it. I'll come up here to the scene collection and right-click and choose View, Hide One Level to collapse everything down. And then let's figure out what these things are. So this is the air vent. I'll go ahead and give that a name, or it's the air vent cover, something like that. I'll just call it air vent. And this, we'll call it knucklehead L for left side, and then I'll Control C that, and then we'll select this one, and I'll Control V to paste that and change that to an R. There we go. Let's see what these are. These are the push rods here and here. I don't know that I really need to label those right now, but my concern is really where should we put these? And I feel like we need a new collection here just for the engine, just generally the engine. I know these are the actual engine, but just all the other parts that go with it. So let's just press M, create a new collection. We'll call it engine, and just put all of that in there. There we go. I think that'll work. So I'll close this. Now let's spin around over here to the other side. I'll just hit the 3 key and press Shift-Z to go to wireframe. And I guess what we should do is just begin with this cylinder. I'd kind of like an image of the other side of this. And I think I have one. Let me, I'm just going to change the outliner to an image editor temporarily. And let's go into our reference images and into the iPhone pictures. And I think there's one, this 09 right here. We take a look at this. This is the other side, but if we zoom in, we can kind of see the back of this piece. Let me press Control and Spacebar. And if we zoom in, we can kind of see here's the back of that piece. So I think I'll leave this view here for now as we're working on this piece. All right, let's be sure that the cursor is in the center of the grid with Shift S1. Then I'll press Shift and right click and move that into here. Let's then press Shift A Mesh Cylinder. And let's take this down to maybe 16 sides, and I'll type in 0.1 and 0.2 here to shrink that down. I'll also take away any cat fills. I'll choose nothing here, and let's scale this down, and we'll turn it in the x-axis, RX90. And then I'll just move this up. It looks like I need to just scale it up a bit, get it in the proper size here, and then scale it out in the Y, SY, and just pull that out about like this. Get it kind of centered there. And let's press Shift-Z and figure out where we need to put it in the x-axis. It looks like it's just under the gas tank there, so I'm just going to pull it out maybe right about here. Let's try it right about there. I'll go ahead and right-click and choose Shade Smooth. And all right, so we have that in place. Next, let's create these pieces over here. I'm thinking it looks to me like these are 6 or 8 sides. I guess maybe 6. Let's try that. I'm going to move the cursor into the center of this object now, so Shift S2. And then let's press Shift A Mesh Cylinder. We'll take this down to 6 sides. And I'll scale this down. And let's spin it in the X, RX90. Let's move it over to the side. I feel like we should maybe scale it down about like this. Move it out. I guess we can press Shift-Z to take a look at it, and that might help, right? Let's do that. Let me scale it down a hair here. Yeah, I think that's pretty good there. And then what we can do is close it off. We've got this little rim here, so I think I'll just tab into edit mode and select these edges with Alt-click and press ES and kind of scale that in, and then I'll press EY and pull that out a bit like that. Also, let's close off this area out here. Let's press ES and close that off. There we go. Now we could take this and mirror it over to the other side. So we can change from median point to 3D cursor for our pivot point by pressing the period key and choose 3D cursor. Then we could duplicate this, Shift D, Enter. Then we could mirror it over in the Y-axis, Control M and Y, and there we go, and then Enter. And so there is the other side of that. You know what I should have done, actually, is close these ends off a bit before I duplicated that. What we can do is just go back. Let me just do that real quick. I'm going to need to move the pivot point back to the median point to be able to scale this in. So I'll press the period key, median, ES. Let's bring that in some. Same thing over here. Alt-click this, ES, and bring that in there. Okay, so we got that. Now I think the next thing we should do is maybe get this plate behind here. It looks kind of like there's a plate behind here. If we zoom in, it's very hard to tell, but it kind of looks like it's triangular-ish back here, and maybe 3 screws or bolts holding it on here, here, and here. So let's work on that. I'll press Shift A, Mesh Plane. Let's take this down to maybe 0.1. I'll turn it in the Y-axis, RY90. There we go. Let's take it back behind here, behind this cylinder here. And then if we go to the side view with the 3 key, Shift Z for wireframe, let's press SY, scale in, SZ, and I'll bring this in about like this. Now I think we could take these and begin bringing them in. So maybe we take this down to here like this, and then we press EZ and bring this up a bit, and then scale in a hair. EZ, bring it up, scale it in. EZ, bring it up, and scale it in like this. Maybe that would work. Let's try that. Then I think what we can do is maybe bevel these vertices so we get a bit of a curve on each of the corners up here. So let's try that. I'm going to press Shift A and apply the scale so we get all ones over here. And then go to vertex mode and maybe select all of these. Let's see if we can do them all at the same time. Control Shift B and pull in like this and scroll the mouse wheel. And maybe all we need is something about like this. Actually, now that I'm looking at this again, it looks like this pulls in a bit here. So maybe we could take this edge right here and scale it in just a bit like this. Yeah, something like that. All right, and then let's give it a bit of thickness. It does look like it comes back a bit. So maybe let's add a solidify modifier, choose even thickness, and maybe bring it in just a bit like this. Then we could smooth it, turn on auto smooth over here. There we go. All right, let's take a look. Yeah, and then let's add these little pieces here. So let's maybe select this face and move the cursor to it. Let's create a UV sphere and maybe take this down to 12 and 8, so it's pretty small. We'll take the radius down to 0.01. There we go. And then we could go to wireframe and tab into edit mode and maybe just select this part here and delete that, delete faces. And then we could turn it in the Y-axis, RY90. We could scale it in the X to kind of flatten it up a bit. We could maybe smooth it, and then we could scale it down a bit and kind of put it in here. What do we think? Maybe a little bit bigger, something like that. All right, and then we can just press Shift D, move this down here, Shift DY and move that over here. I feel like there are a few things going on behind here and underneath as well that we need to deal with. So let's do that. Let's deal with this thing down here. It looks like it's just a cylinder. Let's maybe select an edge down here and move the cursor to that. Shift S2. And then we can press Shift A, mesh cylinder. Let's take this to, let's give it 16. Let's do that. And I'll go ahead and add a triangle fan on the top and the bottom for the cap fills. And let's bring this down and try and get it in place. So maybe something about like that. Let's try that. And I think I need to bring it back into here. I think it's behind there. And then we can smooth it, turn on auto smooth. I feel like it's got curved edges on the top and the bottom, so maybe let's press Shift A and apply the scale. And then we take this edge and press Control B and add a curve there. Try that. And then I feel like we need something back here behind it as well as below it. So I think what we can do for this is just, since we can't really tell exactly what's going on here, we can be pretty vague with this at this point in time. And then as we create other things, we'll see what we need to connect and close off. But for this, let's just press Shift D, Enter, and then I'll press RZ90 to turn that. And then let's just pull this back and kind of insert it into this piece. I'll scale it down just a bit and then kind of insert it into that piece there. Right, so we've got that back here like this. I feel like we've got a cylinder there maybe. Let's do the same thing we just did. Shift D, Enter, and then RY90 again. And then let's scale this down quite a bit. Move this up, and we'll move it into here. Yeah, and then it looks like, gosh, I don't know. It looks like there's a bolt here maybe, and then an extension on up. So let's just let's bring this up a bit like this, and then I'll just press ES and scale that in a bit, and then we can extend that up. Let's just hit E and Z and pull that straight up into here. Yeah, let's try that. And then for this right up here, that bolt, let's select that edge loop and press Shift S2 to move the cursor. Shift A, mesh cylinder. Let's take this down to 6 sides again. We don't need a cap fill. I'll scale it down quite a bit. Let's bring it up and let's kind of put it in here. SZ. Something like that. Actually, I did need a cap fill on that now, didn't I? I'll go ahead and close this off here, ES, and we'll just pull that in like that. All right, and then RZ just to spin it a bit. So now that we've got that, we can use that bolt down here, I think. It looks a little like there's an extrusion off of this right here, and I'll press I to inset this into here. And then we can hit E and pull down. And then let's put a bolt right in here, right there. So let's grab what we just created right up here. Press Shift D, Z, and bring that down to here. Now it looks like it's a little off. Oh, well, it's off this way. So I'll just bring it back in the X global axis there. Bring it up a bit. Maybe we can close this side off now. Here, ES, let's bring that in. And then we need this thing. So let me grab this and bring it up. And all I'm going to do here, I think, is just add a polygon plane. Shift S2 to move the cursor there. And let's press Shift A, mesh plane. And then let's just scale this down quite a bit. Scale it in the Y like this. And then we can begin getting this piece. So it looks like it's just an angled piece. Let's try that. I'll hit Tab to go to edit mode. Let's select this edge, and then I'll press EZ, pull down. And then I'll do that again. EZ, pull down like this, and then I'll just pull this back. How far back do we go? We don't really know. So let's just bring it back like that. I'm not sure. We'll work on that as we get other pieces in. But I'll press Control A and apply the scale for this so that I can grab these edges and press Control B and bevel those. I'll smooth them. And then let's add a solidify modifier down here. Solidify, even thickness. Let's hold the Shift key and drag down a bit. And then let's turn on Auto Smooth here. And that helps quite a bit. All right, so that's basically what I wanted, was to get those connecting pieces in the center so that in the next video, we can come in and begin creating the actual engine here.